Okay? Before a drug goes out to the market for public, for consumption, for doctors to prescribe it, clinical trials happen. Okay? Trials happen. They have different phases. How many phases are there? Four. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Okay? I want you to know that we submit an application to the FDA. What's FDA? Is it federal?
No, Food
and Drug Administration. Can somebody shut the door at the back, please? Food and Drug Administration. Thank you. Okay. So they cover or regulate food, drugs, cosmetics, all of this fun stuff, including tobacco. When a pharmaceutical company or a biotech company has to or intends to create, discover, synthesize a new drug, they have to submit to the FDA. That shows up on the PTCE. Two abbreviations. It stands for Investigational New Drug Application and New Drug Application. Okay? They may be testing a compound, a chemical formula, or a compound or a substance, but they have to submit this before they can proceed to the clinical trial. Okay? I had a live-in nanny, Miss Colleen, when my son was younger. She passed away already. And she loves going to studies. Okay, similar to that, you get paid. But clinical trials specifically for like pharmaceuticals. Okay, those studies sometimes are market studies only. And it's like a focus group discussion wherein you'll be asked to try a new product, not necessarily pharmaceuticals or drugs. I remember she came home with a flosser, the electric flosser, a toothpaste. She likes those things where it's non-invasive. Okay? And then she'll come home with that on her days off because her friends do it, so she does it. Then one time she came home, she said, I'm going to go for this vaccine. Oh, I said, where are you going for this vaccine? I thought you don't want anything invasive because she's on an antihypertensive. Okay. And she said, oh, it's not a new vaccine. It's a vaccine that's already being used to adults. I mean, for adults. So they want to check it for older people, like seniors, geriatrics. You following? So safety-wise, she's not too concerned about it. Okay. It's similar to the donation, like serum or plasma donation. Okay. But with a plasma, you just donate and then you leave, right? And you get paid. Pay varies. It can be a few dollars. It can be thousands. It can be hundreds to thousands. Okay. And it can also be stay in the same facility or you go home, but you report, say, every week or every other day. Okay. To those who are confined in the same facility, that means the drug or product or substance that they're checking has to be, or the patients or the population or the sample has to be in a controlled environment. What does that mean? They eat the same food. They have the same time breakfast. They do the same activities. Like, okay, what did they do they watch TV. All of those are getting marked. Okay. So it varies. Of course, when you're staying, it pays more. Right? When you go home, it pays less than when you're staying in. But it depends on the drug or the substance that's being tested or the product in general. Okay. There are many trials or studies being undertaken, clinical trials or studies being undertaken, but these are just like external, like toothpaste, toothbrush, flosser. And you usually end up in a focus group discussion where the ones who used it, the consumers, will sit down and there'll be a facilitator. Clinical trials are different. Okay? Clinical trials are different. And there are 4 phases, like you said. Okay? But in a clinical trial, I want you to know there's 2 things. Okay? You show up on the PTCE. Single blind trial and double blind trial. No, you don't poke the patient's eye and make them blind. Okay? What's a single blind trial? Yes, Kathy.
Whoever's giving the medication knows, but whoever's receiving it does not know.
The one administering knows. And the population or the sample or the volunteers don't know what they're taking, whether they're taking the real drug or placebo. What's placebo? Like fake. So what are placebo? It's sugar pills. They don't have the active ingredient, or normal saline. It's IV, okay, or injectable, okay? The one administering, no. What's double blind? Both the one administering and the patient, the volunteer, or the consumer doesn't know what he or she is taking, whether it's the real drug with the active ingredient or placebo. Are you following? Now they're both blind. Single blind versus double blind. These 2 terminologies show up on the PTCE every now and then. Okay? Double blind, double blind. Who watches Grey's Anatomy? You remember that episode wherein she's responsible for an Alzheimer's clinical trial and she has to make a decision. What was that? 15 minutes. 11 o'clock.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Okay. So remember that time when she's responsible for the clinical trial, right? She has to make a decision, or it has to be random actually, whether the chief's wife is gonna get the placebo or the drug. Remember that episode? It's been a long time. Haven't watched it in a long time. Haven't watched the series in a long time. Erin, do you remember what happened to that? Yeah. It's an ethical dilemma. Why is it an ethical dilemma, which we're going to talk about in law?
That's his wife. It's like the counsel.
That's actually her mom. I mean, her boss's wife. Okay? But her mom had an affair with the chief.
Oh my God.
You remember that? Her mom is also a doctor. Okay? And the now chief at that episode, his wife has Alzheimer's. And in that hospital, they were testing an Alzheimer's investigational drug. Okay. So, ethical and moral dilemma. Like, she wanted to give her the real drug and not the placebo. This is her dilemma, okay? To kind of pay for the hurt and pain of her mom having an affair with the chief. Okay? And that's why I'm asking you, because I can't remember, or I didn't watch the next episode, but that was the cliffhanger. Okay? Because it's random, like lottery. Like when you get drawn here for a blood, for a drug testing, that's random. That's lottery. Okay? And so I think one of my students told me, I don't want to say, because she's like, if she gets in her head, if she gets the placebo, I still would like to give her the real drug. So that was a cliffhanger, like an ethical or a moral dilemma. Okay. But I think one of my students told me the answer, and I won't tell you because anyway, going back. So now you know that in a trial, there's placebo, fake drugs. Okay. So sometimes patients are thinking, oh my God, I got this effect, like it's working. But the patient didn't know because it's blind testing. Patient didn't know that it was placebo that he or she got. So it's psychological, right? Psychological. And these are part or processes involved in a clinical trial. But there are different phases. What's phase one? How many? And are they sick patients that have the disease or the problem? How many? What did you see? I know there's so many information on the internet, but I want to hear what you saw, what you found. Yes, Karen.
Because I got phase 0.
Yes, there's a phase 0. Good
And
job.
Phase 0 has 10 to 15.
Good job, which I'm going to put in here. Okay, good job.
We
We call it a preclinical trial. Correct? Phase 0 is a preclinical trial. And what's phase 0, since you mentioned? Is it animals? Is it humans?
Because for what I got, it gives me like, okay, so the discovery happens where they find a drug and then they find
Yes.
they're gonna use it to target, right? And
Right.
then the preclinical says testing the toxicity on animals. And then phase 0 is actually a preliminary trial for where they use it on patients, but it's only a small group, which is a 10 to 15.
Correct. Okay. So sometimes, okay. Sometimes they merge this too. Okay. But technically, okay, correct information that you got though. Okay. A preclinical trial before the actual clinical trial phase involves what? Animals. Remember I told you about my feces? The rabbits, the white mice, the hamsters,
Rabbits, these phases.
and the guinea pigs. I know, but would you rather test the toxicity on humans?
Yeah.
You guys are savage. Animals first and humans. I know. We won't have these drugs that are really effective if we didn't test them. But anyway, so it's animals first on the preclinical trial. We have to test for toxicity. How much is toxic? Right? But remember, these are smaller animals too. Right? And just like humans, this may be effective for this mouse, but not for this mouse. Right? Okay. So what's phase 0? Repeat, Kathy.
Phase 0 is a preliminary trial.
It's a preliminary trial. Okay. But does it involve humans now?
Yes. It's a small group.
How much? 10 to 15. What are they testing? This one is toxicity. What are they testing? Are they testing the effectivity already, the effectiveness?
They're testing the pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, and observe ADME.
Remember why I keep talking about this?
Yeah.
Pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics. What's pharmacodynamics? What the drug, here we go again, does to the body. So basically, its effect. Okay? Pharmacokinetics, you mentioned what the body does to the drug or your admin. Absorption, distribution, metabolism.
They also choose what form it is in that one.
Healthy individuals? Healthy? This 10 to 15 packs healthy? Yes, healthy. Okay? And she added, they also choose the form, the dosage form. Is it going to be in a tablet form, a capsule form, an extended release form? Because they're going to do the admin. Is it in liquid form? Is it in syrup? Is it best as an elixir or liquid? Okay, very good. Okay. Now let's go to the 4 phases. Okay. Because these are like the preliminary, right? What's phase 1? How many?
280. I got that too.
20 to 100, or we say less than 100. Healthy or has the disease? Turning it on, 3, 2, 1.
Healthy bone.
Healthy or has the disease?
Healthy.
Healthy. Not yet with the disease. Okay? Healthy. Okay? Next, phase 2. Over 100, several hundreds. Okay? Healthy.
What disease or condition already?
The condition is present now. Up to,
3,000.
some would say 2,000, some would say 3,000, but what did you find common? 3,000 packs. Okay, what are we doing here? With a condition, or is it healthy?
With the condition.
With a condition still, right? What are they testing for in phase 3? The ADEs, okay, and side effects. Here's the thing. You have to remember these two terminologies. It shows up too. The adverse drug reaction or event, okay, unseen or was not observed. Okay. Side effects are what? Seen or observed during the trial. And this is why when there's an adverse drug event, we report it to the FDA under MedWatch. Are you following? Because usually this adverse drug reactions or events weren't seen in the clinical trials. Okay? So another term that we use that you want to know is side effects are known. Known. Why is it known? Because of this many people, okay, that reported it during the trial. Okay, so what's adverse drug reaction? Usually unknown. These are your words that you want to remember. Okay, unknown because they didn't see it in the clinical trials. Okay. So again, going back, phase 3 up to 3,000 packs. They have the condition. We're checking for possible side effects, adverse drug reactions. What else? Are we checking for something else?
I got this, they also compare it to other treatments on the market.
Correct. So if they're testing an antihypertensive, this is the part, phase 3, when they're comparing it to other antihypertensives in the market. Okay? You remember how there's an antacid, now there's PPIs. Okay. What else? Anything else on phase 3? That's a measure. What's phase 4?
Market surveillance. It's a release to the market and they stuff like.
Remember I told you there's a phase in the clinical trial where it's already out in the public. And that is phase 4. Okay? Now, how long is each phase? Because I'm going to talk about COVID vaccine and why the fast track. Market surveillance, it's out in the public, doctors can prescribe it, but there'll be more people using the drugs now who has the condition, so there'll be more reports. And that's why any drug that's out in the market is still on a clinical trial, phase 4. You follow it? Okay. Now, how long does this phase preclinical trial last usually?
14, 18. Yeah.
14 to 18 months. Phase 0 would be?
It's preliminary.
That's why it's like 2, because this 2 is 14 to 18 months. Okay? Phase 0, unless you found something different. Okay, now let's start. Phase 1, how long?
Less than a year.
1 to 2 years. Phase 2?
2 years.
Huh?
2 years.
2 years. Phase 3?
1 to 4 years.
1 to 4 years. And phase 4? Continuously, right?
Forever.
Right. So let's count how long a drug goes through clinical trials before it's introduced to the market or the public. Let's count the max. 18 months is how many years? 1.5. So that's why 1.5. Let's do the max here. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 4. 4, 8, 9.5 years. Right? Okay. I told you on the average, clinical trials is 7 to 8 years before we put it out in the market. And a big portion doesn't even make it here. It gets shut down fast. Either it's a waste of money, toxic, okay? That's why, okay, this pharmaceutical companies, because you pay, you have this, you spend millions to billions producing one drug. That's why this pharmaceutical companies have exclusivity rights to this particular drug compound. Call that exclusivity right. Patent. This shows up on the PTC a lot. How long is a patent good for? 20 years. Back in the day, it was 17. Then the Hatch-Waxman Amendment allows them to have an additional 5 years. Now, on the PTCE, when you're asked how long is a patent good for, 20 years. Why? It allows pharmaceutical companies to recoup the cost of their investments. You see how long? That's why new drugs are expensive. Right? Branded drugs are expensive. And then after 20 years, what usually happens on year 19, this generics company in India, in South Korea, in China, okay? Now here we do Latin American countries too, okay? They start contracting or communicating the saying, okay, this is going to lose its patent. Year 19, you're starting to test and manufacture 18, 19, the equivalency of their generic products. Okay? And that's why you hear this patients, is there generic already? Because they're tired and it's expensive to pay the copay of this branded products. Is that clear? It's part of your law as well. Okay, but it's interesting to know. Okay, and this volunteers get paid for their time. Okay, others are pro at this already. 3-month livelihood, a full-time job for them. But remember, on phase 2, you have to have the condition. You can volunteer at this if you're healthy. Okay. Now I want to show you a short video, less than 2 minutes, of the different phases. Okay, from the National Cancer Institute. Somebody erase the word. A lot of this I talked about shows up on the PTC. Many get shut down at this phase. Many get shut down at this phase. Thanks, Yami. Thanks, Aaron. Okay. Instead of them spending more, you already know the trial gets killed or the product gets killed at this phase, animal phase.
With the animals. Oh my God,
I know. I told you the story about my thesis, right? For us to come up with an equivalent acetaminophen, it's 20 rabbits. And we had to make them sick. We gave them with brewer's yeast. Okay, a solution of brewer's yeast. Because yeast is not normal to their body, right? Anything foreign. So we made them have fever. Okay. Yes.
What is mad effect?
Huh?
Math, what is that?
MAD, minimum effective dose. Is that what you're saying?
Oh,
Like mad cow disease.
maybe. What if they?
Oh, mad cow disease. You're talking about that?
I was looking at the like.
Mad cow disease. You know the
No.
foot,
You're getting confused.
hand and foot.
This isn't
what do you call
the
that?
first phase. They do safety and MTB, which is maximum tolerated dose, and then within those they test the MAB food effect and SAB. Trainer, multiple ascending dose. So multiple ascending dose.
I thought you said med.
I'm like, no.
Med multiple. I mean maximum effective dose and minimum effective dose. MAD. You see how we say, just like, what was that you spelled? Zalatan and Zalatan. See the National Cancer Institute.
Where you go mad because the cow? It's usually called.
What is that? Like foot and mouth disease? You remember that?
Oh, I think you're right.
And then there's a mad cow disease as well.
I saw that.
Oh, let me smell straight. Oh, there you go. Okay. That's just short, 2 minutes. 1:48 actually. Okay, listen guys. 1 minute 48 seconds. This is from the National Cancer Institute. So talk about the cancer. Wait, you gotta put in mind that this is cancer drugs, huh? Okay, it's not the general like we talked about earlier, okay? Because this is from the National Cancer Institute. Okay, so it's a little bit different once we get to like cancer drugs. Each company institution has a different like facing. Okay, this one was specific to cancer drugs. Okay, cancer drugs, which is by the video was by the National Cancer Institute. Okay, I'm gonna have Miss Adams come in before I start computer apps, but before I do that, every now and then I ask you for what's one thing. What's that one thing that you learned today that made an impact on you, or you think you'll never forget for the board exam, for the PTCE, or you'll never forget and take with you to your externship or to practice as a pharmacy technician once you're in the field? What's that one thing? Okay, like Dr. Seuss, thing one and thing two. I want the thing one. Where are you at? One thing that you learned today.
Okay, you were taking oxycodone and hydrocodone. You need to, if you wanna have a the hydrocodone, you need to take. No, they.
Taper.
Yeah,
Taper off is the
We're
term.
gonna start with a new one.
Okay. Taper off or tapering down. There are drugs that
Really?
need to be tapered down or lowered. Okay, good. That's good. And your oxy and hydrocodones are one of them. Okay. What about you, Yami?
NDC.
NDC. Oh, because she's a freshman, so this is new to her. NDC. What about NDC?
The specific numbers of the.
Specific numbers. There's 10 to 11. Called National Drug Code. The first 5 is the manufacturer code. The second group, which is 4 digits, is the drug. And then the last 2 would be the package size. Okay. Emily, one thing.
The 6 trial double blind.
Yeah, single blind and double blind. We don't poke the patient's eyes. Single blind, only the one administering or the administrator knows. Okay. And then the patient doesn't know whether he or she is taking placebo or the real drug, right? Being tested. Double blind, both the administrator, the one administering the drug, doesn't know as well as the patient. Okay, Manny.
Patient safety,
Patient safety, what about it? We've been talking about it. That's the class.
paying attention to the symbols, the math, talking, asking questions,
Yeah.
double checking,
Yeah.
paying attention.
Patient safety is important. Paying attention, some abbreviations that we should not use. Okay, Josh. Preclinical trials, yes. What about it? Yeah. Usually when you check how many clinical trial phases are there, you say 4. But if you're going to be technical, there's the 0, and there's also the pre, which is for animals. Okay, good. Sam? Yeah, which medications you need to give med guide. That shows up on the PTCE too. Okay. Warfarin is something that's surprising. Blood thinners, warfarin, Coumadin is something, and diabetic medications must have med guides. Okay. It's going to ask you accept. Okay. Usually that's a question. Aaron?
Sometimes medication errors happen on the fault of the patient. Sometimes it is a technical error that causes the errors.
System error. So it can happen in the healthcare provider side, can happen in the patient side or the caregiver side. And it can be because of human error or system error. Okay. Ashley.
That not asking questions is your error. Asking questions is very important. So nobody loses their license.
Yes, ask questions. When you're in doubt, when you're not in doubt, ask questions, especially you're new. Especially you're new. They understand that. They know that. They're appreciative of those questions. They like you to ask questions. That's how you learn. You ask questions or commit mistakes. But sometimes our mistakes are so dangerous that we may damage somebody. Okay? So ask the questions before we get to that point. Steve,
How many phases?
how many phases there are in a clinical trial? Okay. Jessica? It can be the patient too, not just the provider. Okay. So give me an example of what it's the patient error. When they take it, so it's error in time or time of administration, okay? Or route or route of administration, right? Kathy.
Where's drug reactions and side effects? To me, I thought
The
they were
difference.
interchangeable. I'm like, oh, they're the same.
Oh.
But they're not the same.
Okay, so which one is known? Which one is unknown?
The one that's the ADR.
ADR or ADE, unknown?
Side effects are
No. Because the side effects, we see that during the clinical trials. Well, 9.5 years, 7 to 9.5 years. Calvin.
Say the phase, like
Actually, preclinical trial is the one that use animals. Okay. Phase 0 is humans. Okay? But they usually lump it together. Okay. What about you, Ty?
Very important.
Thank you. They're just as good as written orders. I'm glad somebody said that. Okay. Because it's one of the most important today. Okay. Ashlyn?
Medication error are.
Yes, the word preventable is on the definition for a reason. Medication errors are preventable. Okay. Know the different errors. They show up on your final exam, just so you know. But before I proceed, I'm going to grab Miss Adams. Okay. I don't know exactly what she needs from you guys, but looks like